Hi everyone, I'm Nicole, welcome to my channel, and we're going to be making some little rock boys. My dear friend Kaypeacreation came up with these, and I've been obsessed with them ever since. So I wanted to do my own spin on these guys, and make them into fossil boys. We're going to start off strong with our petrified wood, who's going to be Stumpy and his friend Pip. And before any of you were like, oh my god, you're copying Karen, you can't do that, don't worry, I have a permit. Now, for Stumpy, we're going to start off with just a stump-shaped piece of tinfoil. This is going to be our armature. It's going to save us on clay and hopefully prevent this from cracking. It does something else you'll see later. But I just started adding ropes of clay onto it. This is going to give it a lot more dimension and make it more interesting. I really want to make sure I blended everything together and started adding some really nice texture, and you can see what a difference it makes. I cut the top areas flat because I want this to look almost like stone and not so much like a rotting stump. I blunted off where those roots would have been because that's what I saw when I looked at pictures of fossilized trees. I went ahead and used my X-Acto blade here and some of the ends of my tools to add more interest and texture. Of course, the toothbrush of texture has to make an appearance, and of course some nice fine detailing with my needle tool. I wanted to make sure I added some rings to our trees, so I made sure to add those details on the top and the bottom. After adding all the detail, I can move on to my favorite part, which is adding the face. And this is where they really get their little personalities. I went ahead and gave him some simple eyes, and I used this tool to scrape out some clay so I could add an open, smiling mouth. I then added the tiniest of tongues, and he was ready to be baked. But when I baked him, air got trapped in the bottom of his stump and he looked like he had a giant BBL. And I panicked and I stabbed it with a knife thinking that would help. It did not. I ended up having to cut it out and redo it with Fix-It Sculpt. After the booty disaster, we can move on to making Pip, short for Pipsqueak. He's going to be a tiny version of Karen's Rock Boys. I went ahead and gave him their basic shape, the cutest little face, and a tiny booty. And then he needed his little leaf. Now, he first had these creepy human hands and I chopped them off because I thought they looked weird, so I gave him some simpler hands instead. Now for fern, which is going to be a fossilized fern leaf, we're going to start making the actual fossil itself first. This one is going to be for Kaypeacreation, so we're going to make it extra special. We're starting off with some of those fern fronds and then moving on to the fern leaf itself. It's just a very simple leaf structure that we're going to blend together. I'm using Cost Clay because we're going to use this like a stamp, and its strength and flexibility is going to work really well for this. With all of our fossils baked, we can move on to making Fern's body, which starts off once again as aluminum foil. Once we have our basic shape, we just start adding clay and building up the body exactly how we want it and making sure all the clay is smooth together. After that, per Kaypeacreation's instructions, you just start smacking that thing around. This is going to help us get from a soft shape to a nice faceted shape. X-Acto blades work really well for this as well. You can carve in whatever little details you want like I'm doing here, or use your tool to carve in some cool cracks that we're going to do something with later. Some of you who watch my videos may know about the rock of texture, but if you don't, let me put you on it, because let me tell you, the best thing to make rock texture turns out is an actual rock. Now, one of the funnest things about making these little rock creatures is playing around with the size of their arms and legs. So here, she is very tall and long, but she's going to have the tiniest of little feet. Once I attach her dainty little feet to her body, I make sure to texture them really well. And of course, use the toothbrush of texture. Now you want to make sure that you actually put them on a flat surface and press them down so that they do not fall over. I gave her a very sweet and happy little face. I find that sometimes flipping my art over really helps me get things even. Then I wanted to add a little more surface details just to keep it interesting. And of course, the tiniest little delicate booty. Now we can add our fossil, which is the fun part. We're going to use this leaf just like a stamp. And since it's bendable, it moves to all the curves of her body perfectly. And bam, instant fossil. You can also go in with tools and add any more texture or clean up anything you need to. I went ahead and did the same thing for our little fronds and some little tiny leaves that I made as well. I wanted to make some of the fronds look like they were coming out of cracks in her body, and I think it turned out really cool. I also punched a hole in the bottom so that any air can escape and we won't have any more booty explosions. Now we can move on to our ammonite fossil. This is going to be donk. You'll figure out why in a minute. These fossils are super easy to make. You just start out with a tapered little noodle of clay and you start adding lines. I added more and smaller lines closer to the end. This is going to give it that cool spiral shape. I put it on a piece of clay so the inside of the fossil doesn't collapse and it keeps everything even. And of course, you gotta texture it. Now we have some awesome fossils to push into our clay. And now you get to see why this guy's name is gonna be Dunk, cause it's short for badonkadonk, cause this guy is like 50% booty. This is gonna be for Sarah, who is Karen's editor. And she made her own little rock boy who was also like 50% booty. And I mean, it just got bigger and bigger. And in her words, and now we can start faceting this guy and making him more interesting. And of course, I had to give his butt a butt crack, pun intended. Now I start making this booty even more majestic by adding lots of facets and interest. Here, I just use my rock of texture. Now we can give him a little face. And man, is he just the cutest little rock potato you ever did see. Now with his body complete and textured, we can start adding those fossils. And this is the fun part, figuring out where you want those to be. After I got him all stamped up, I realized I wanted him to have the tiniest, shortest little legs, so I went ahead and added those to the body and made sure to texture them so they blended in. And once again, hoping he can actually stand after I bake him. After adding the safety hole, we move on to my guy, who's going to be Lurch. We're going to use these star-shaped fossils. I struggle through making a star, which is like my nemesis, and then I can start making the outlines for where I'm going to add the designs. After our stars are all baked up, we can start working on Lurch's body, and you can see why he earned his name Lurch. He is going to be a large rectangular boy with maybe one little brain cell rolling around in this entire body. He gets the cutest little booty, and then we can move on to making him some arms. I just start off with a very simple arm shape, and then I make sure to facet it so it blends in with the rest of the body. After figuring out the arms, I can move on to the feet. I picked out this cute little boxy design, then I started faceting the body and texturing it. I always make sure to do the same thing for any appendages I make for these little fossil boys. It's easier to facet them once they're not attached to the body. I figured that out the hard way. Then I just want to make sure that I blend them into the body really well. Once all of our appendages are attached, we can move on to his face. And the cutest face he does have. Does he not have the perfect expression for this whole situation? I love him so much. Now we can start adding our fossils, which worked flawlessly, except for me dropping them all over the place, but I made it work. We're going to add some artfully placed cracks as well, and one for the back. One problem with making taller little idiots is they tend to fall over in the oven, but that's okay. We're going to fix it. Once again with Fix-It Sculpt. I made him some fancy little shoes and evened him out, and now he can stand on his own. It's also great for filling up those safety holes. Now to work on my daughter's fossil boy, whose name is Glurp. I don't know, just roll with it. She wanted some dino footprints because she's obsessed with birds, and as we all know, birds were once dinosaurs. We're gonna make some adorable little dinosaur footprints. I wanted to make a large one and also make a small one so we could have little mommy steps and baby steps because I'm a sentimental gal. What can I say? I tested them out and they worked flawlessly. Now for the body, we want to make an area where we can have little footprints. So this guy's going to come out looking a little bit like a crab, which I do not hate. When adding these facets, I try to work with the shape of the actual rock. That way everything looks good and looks like it should be that way. Then of course, we need to texture. After tons of texture, we can add our fossils. I'm just pushing these into the clay and rocking them a little bit and pulling them out. Now we can move on to the face, and my daughter had very specific instructions. And I have to say, she was right, because this face is adorable and hilarious. And you may be wondering, where's the booty? Why is there no booty, Nicole? Well, my daughter forbid me from adding one. I know, but we gotta let her be wrong sometimes, you know? She's a grown adult now. After adding the hole of safety, I went ahead and put him in the oven and he came out great, other than not having a booty. which feels very wrong and we hates it. But now we're gonna start our dragonfly fossil, and we love that. Mostly because I'm making this for my mom. And even though she's not here, that doesn't mean I can't make her art. And my mom loved dragonflies. And every time I see one, I think about her and I say hello. After detailing our beautiful little dragonfly wings, I went ahead and made the body and gave that body some eyes. Dragonflies are pretty simple and really fun to make. I went ahead and made a large one and a small one. I'm really loving this whole mom and baby type deal here. Can't help it. Now we can move on to making the body. While I watch a little Catnip, one of my favorite YouTube channels. She is so adorable, I love her. Now this guy started off as a cube, and as I added more clay, he turned into like a rectangle cube. And he had some air pockets hidden, which I had to get out so that we didn't have any more explosions. He's starting to look very cubish, and I name him Coob. And if you're like, Nicole, that's not a cube, that's more like a rectangle. Once again, I have a permit, so don't even worry about it. I made sure to texture our Coob up very well, and after that, I added the cutest pair of tiny little arms and legs, but I need to take them off to finish adding the details. And this little face may remind you of a special little robot that I love that I may be doing a video on. After adding the face, I started adding the fossils, but it needed something to go with it. Then I remembered that I had some leftover plants that are kind of flat from my Avatar-inspired salamander video, and these worked great. They were super bendable and I could push them into the clay. I went ahead and just started placing my dragonfly fossils on the rest of the body. Added my hole of safety and the tiniest little butt crack. Then I could reattach those arms and make sure to texture them so they match the rest of the body. After adding the legs, I made sure to give him a nice little squish so that he sat level. Now Karen added mushrooms into her Rock Boy video, so I'm going to add some ancient fungi into mine. And I don't got a lot to work with, okay? They're giant finger looking things. They could be up to 24 feet tall, which is horrifying and I hate it. So I just texture the heck out of these creepy fingers and give them little faces. Do they end up turning into kind of a little bit of a weird abomination? Yes, but I still love them. Especially this little guy, who's just a visual representation of my own anxiety. Now my creepy little guys are made, and we're gonna make them a base. By the way, I named these guys Beep, Boop, and Bop, and you can figure out who's who, because I don't even know myself. Fix-It Sculpt is a clay as well as an adhesive, so I'm gonna use it as both, using it to both secure my little dudes and to blend them into the base. I spent a lot of time making sure that I really smoothed the clay into the cosplay so that it all looked like one piece. Then of course, adding lots of texture after I added the clay on the rest of the base. To make these guys look less weird, I decided I'd add some artificial plants, so I drilled some holes into my base and went ahead and put clay on the bottom as well. And now we can move on to painting. I went ahead and gathered up every tan and brown I owned, and we're just gonna see what happens. We're gonna start off with Pipsqueak here, and I'm doing a lot of dry brushing and just layering it on top of each other and hoping it works out. I went ahead and added some white to the edges to really bring out all those facets I spent so much time creating, and added the little leaf on top like Karen's have in her video. Now for his friend, Stumpy. I start off with some black here, doing a swirl and twirl, and then I move on to varying shades of brown in lighter colors. The challenge was making him look like a fossil and not just a stump, so we're going with some of these really cool rust colors and oranges that some of the fossils have. I went ahead and brought that color down into some of the grooves. I used the same rust color for inside of the mouth and a little bit of pink for the tongue. Then I went ahead and dry brushed some on the body as well. For Fern, I went with a lighter color palette and started off with some creams and tans. I added a little bit of an oxidation color to her and just really had fun dry brushing. Then I went in with a wash, which is just watered down paint, and patted off the excess. You can even go in and just paint in the areas you want to be darker with your wash as well. And if you remember those cracks, we're gonna go ahead and put some metal inside. Everybody got to pick their color. Karen wanted copper, so I painted inside of those cracks with a copper paint. For my daughters, we went with a tan color palette, starting off with a lighter cream and getting progressively darker with our washes. I really love how this turned out, especially with the little footprints, and she asked for gold inside of the cracks on her little fossil guy. I made sure to highlight all of the edges on all of these pieces, and it really bring out the character in them. Now for Lurch, I started off with a watered down wash for him, and then layered on this darker wash, and it really settles into the cracks nicely. I went ahead and painted the fossils darker so that there was more contrast. I went ahead and gave him some veins of silver in his rock body as well. Is this realistic? I have no idea, and I do not care, because we're just having fun. Now, Donkier started out looking kind of like a potato, and I was like, okay, we gotta turn this around. We gotta save this. It's nothing a little bit of gray wash can't fix. Adding that gray wash made all the difference. And once I found out that fossils could have opal in them, I knew what I had to do. So this boy is getting a bedazzled butt crack of opal. I just layered some opal colors into the cracks and it came out looking great. These guys, not so much. I think we're all thinking it. I went hard with the green, then I went a little too hard with the green. Then they had green faces and looked radioactive, so I switched them to black. And I mean, it's better, but it's not great. Sometimes you make art and it's beautiful. Sometimes you make a tiny abomination with fake plants stuck to it. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Luckily, I get a better result with our last little fossil, which is the dragonfly fossil. And I really think my mom would have loved this guy, or at least thought he was hilarious. I went ahead and added some opal to this one as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more of my art content and tutorials.